welcome. No more nonsense, let's just talk about it. After years, it's finally time to play Final Fantasy IV 2. Perhaps the longest time between original and sequel. Square Enix finally decided to answer our prayers to make a sequel to one of the Super Nintendo Golden Age games. But what did they do? They made an episodic mobile game and put it on the Wii Shop channel in 10 pieces. So it was a mobile game at first. It came to the Wii. Eventually, it came to the Final Fantasy IV Complete Collection, which is the game that I bought however many days ago to play the original 4, because it was the complete package and a really nice remake with 2D sprites. You could also get the After Years 3D edition on Steam still, because even though the Pixel Remaster came out, there's still a 4 3D version on Steam. There's 2 different 4s, and there's only one After Years 4 that you can still get on Steam. But because many refer to the Final Fantasy IV Complete Collection as the definitive version of 4 still to this day, it's also the definitive version of the After Years, and also it comes with an additional minigame. The Complete Collection on PSP or Vita is the only way to play Final Fantasy IV Interlude, a small game that came later that takes place between 4 and the After Years, and we will be talking about that before we dive into the main game. Spoilers abound for Final Fantasy IV. What can I do? It's a sequel. Just a little reminder of what happened in the last game. Basically, every character became a king of one of the castles in the land. So like, you and all your friends are just ruling this planet, essentially. It's kind of weird. And you got Rosa, the queen, and Cecil, the king. Or is it Cecil? I think I got it wrong in the first video. It's actually never been truly confirmed. Voice acting in the 3D remake says Cecil, but man, I'm not calling him Cecil. It's Cease. It's not Cess. Everyone's a king. Golbez, who is kind of the main antagonist, goes off on the moon with Fusoya, and they just go because, he's so guilty about almost killing the world and everything. He went away to the moon people, the Lunarians, of which he and Cecil are part of because they're brothers of the moon. You remember, right? Kain is the only one who didn't become a king because he went off to the Mount Ordeals to train for the rest of his days, or until he's worthy to return to Baron and be with his friends again. Because he was not quite the antagonist, but he was like the Knuckles of the group. He got tricked and he betrayed a bunch of times. But we forgive him. We're okay with Kain. Everybody's cool. Until one day, a second moon appears. Uh-oh. Here we go again. So let's just dive into Interlude. Final Fantasy IV Interlude, again, only playable via the PSP or Vita version, and it is a 3-hour little game that takes place 1 year after the original game. It also serves as your first taste of what this game is going to be like, so I'm not going to repeat myself, I'm just going to talk about it all here. You start this game and you're like, oh, this is the same. Wow. You run around Baron Castle, it's the exact same map, exact same characters, same battle system. It's just like more of the Super Nintendo game, not one change. At first it's a little cool, it's like, wow. Because I got nostalgic. I was like, it was all coming back to me, like, remember 4? Wow. I've been doing this for a while. You get to see all your friends, they come together to go to, Damsian, the place where Edward is king, the bard guy. You get all your friends together, reunion, and you go to Edward's place to hang out and have a party. Sid update, he's the same. He's actually got a kid now. Multiple kids. He's got a son named Mid, who we haven't seen a Mid in a very long time, so it's cool to see Mid. He also has a daughter named Sid's daughter. Unfortunately, Rosa is not accompanying you because she's experiencing some weird pains, stomach pains. So it's all nice and fun. Yang's wife is pregnant. Remember the monk guy, the bald, well, he's got a ponytail. His wife's pregnant. She gives birth to a nice daughter, and after all you guys been through, Yang is like, you're the godfather, Cecil. You name her. And Cecil's like, I don't know, let's call her Ursula. And he goes like, that's a strong name. She's Ursula. So there you go. You name his daughter. What's the actual story? When does it get started? It dwells a lot. Some fan servicey character moments, that's fine. But basically, the dwarves are asking for your help. Monsters are coming out of the sealed cave once again. We gotta stop them, can you please help us? Everybody goes and helps, and then you get to the Tower of Babel, which is also crawling with monsters. You see Rydia, the green-haired summoner girl, climbing the tower by herself without you, and you're like, where's she going? What's up with her? She's part of this, what's going on? And you chase her. Along the way, you fight the Eidolons. I looked up the pronunciation for that. Eidolon. So you climb the tower, you fight all the monsters, you meet up with Rydia, and you find out that's not Rydia. There was an imposter among us. She transforms back to her normal self. It's a mysterious girl with blue hair and purple dress. And she's called Mysterious Girl. You fight her, you beat her, but she gets away. So, classic RPG game. As she gets away, she lets somebody know via the communication system, the Eidolon project is complete. That's what she says. The Eidolon project is complete. You fight a bunch of bosses. It's a little tough, but nothing you can't handle. And that's kind of the end of it. This is just a little tease of what's to come. I found a secret developer room. It was kind of easy to get to. It wasn't that hidden. It wasn't that secret, but you walk in and it's all like the game developers just sitting there chatting. There are a bunch of optional boss fights, including like a zombie he's like a game developer. And all he does is moan and say he wants to go home, and then you put him out of his misery. So, so you get back home, everybody goes home, they're like, that was weird, but I don't know what to do about it, so let's just go home. Cecil returns, how's Roses doing? Oh, we found out she's pregnant! Oh! The end. And then the post-credits scene shows Cain at Mount Ordeals. He was sitting out of this whole thing because he was busy training. Nobody really knows where he is, so it just shows him sitting there on the mountain, and then a voice calls out to him. The end, to be continued. So that's the interlude. Am I gonna say that's worth it? Well, at first I thought it was kinda cool, but by the end of the actual game, my opinion was like, I did not need more of this, I needed less of this. Why don't we start talking about the actual game? First, real quick gameplay before we get into the story. Like I said at the beginning of the interlude part, this is the same exact thing. It's if you played 4, specifically if you played 4 in the complete collection, the graphics are the same, everything looks the exact same. It's an ATB game. It chooses your party for you. You have to deal with what you got, and you gotta maintain your health and make sure the enemy health goes down. Final Fantasy IV is one of the more simple Final Fantasy games, one of the simplest, for sure. And man, I've been quite spoiled over the past year and a half. I have experienced so much variety in various gameplay, complicated character build systems, gameplay styles and systems and whatnot. Every mainline game does something new and crazy, and to return to the original ATB battle system was something else. Just to be taken back, like, I have to go to an inn to heal? I can't just heal on a save point? I need to use a tent? This is why I play the games in order, so I'm not spoiled on some of these things, but what can I do? They released a sequel to a 1990 whatever game in 2009. I just gotta play it when it comes out. But going down a really long dungeon, a really long cave, constantly running into random encounters, it's like, I gotta be honest, I didn't miss this. There are actually 2 small little changes to the gameplay system. They didn't leave it completely bare. The phases of the moon now affect your gameplay. When you go to sleep at an inn or a tent, the phase of the moon will change. It also changes at various intervals of the game. Depending on the phase of the moon, a certain thing in a battle will be debuffed and buffed. So physical attack could be debuffed or buffed. Black magic, white magic, extra side abilities, all can be buffed or debuffed depending on the moon. And you might think this changes some things up, it makes you re-strategize, it makes you rethink what you're gonna do, but it really doesn't. So here's an example. When you approach a boss who is not affected by magic, you know, if you use magic, it'll absorb it and heal or something, so attack is your only option. If you're at a phase of the moon where attack is debuffed, magic could be buffed, because, you know, there's always one and another. There's always a debuff and a buff. But you have to use attack. Sometimes, maybe the enemy will just resist magic. But even in that case, even if it's just resistive to magic and attack is debuffed, attack is still the better option for a boss that should be physically attacked, you know what I'm saying? Whenever you approach a boss that needs to be handled with a thing that's debuffed, all it means is that it's going to take longer because your attacks are weaker. That's all this system accomplishes. It would be cool if you had to rethink strategy, but that's not really an option in this game. You don't really rethink anything in Final Fantasy IV. You have to do... Bosses in this game are, you have to figure out how to beat them. If you have to use lightning attacks on the water guy, but black magic is debuffed, you still have to use black magic. So it's kind of just annoying. Now, sometimes the moon lines up correctly and you have to use black magic, and black magic is buffed, so it's stronger than usual. That's great. But is this system needed? No. Does it add anything? No, it really doesn't. The second new thing they added, bands. When two characters form a bond via a cutscene or story moment, they unlock a band. If you remember Twin Cast from the original game, which is Palom and Porum's thing, they both use Twin Cast, and then they spend their whole turn, both of them charging up, and then they do a strong twin attack. They basically added that for like every character. You just have to unlock them as you go. That's really all they are, just a big strong attack that you use two characters for. I never did it. I'm not gonna say it's worthless and pointless like the moon thing, but it's mostly because when you get into like the hard stuff in this game, you need all 5 of your party members focused. If you use 2 of them to charge up this super strong attack, that's cool, but now you only got 3 of your party members actively trying to support each other and healing and stuff. If one of those 2 guys dies, they're both wasted. So this is a game where you have to move really fast all the time during the hard bosses. I just never thought to use bands. I forgot they existed, and that's all that's new for gameplay. If you played 4, other than that stuff, you know exactly how this goes down. Probably more than you might think, because this game not only has the same battle system as 4, it has a lot of the same battles as 4, with no significant changes. And that's a reoccurring theme for this game. So let's finally talk about the episodes. The basic of the story is that Second Moon shows up. That mysterious girl is going around Earth, stealing the crystals. What is going on? What do we do? So each episode is about one of the main cast of characters finding out what's happening. There's a second moon. There's this mysterious girl. What's happening? What do I do? And then they try doing something, or try going somewhere, and then it ends, and then you go back in time and you do the next episode from a different person's perspective. None of the perspectives are very much different, and they don't really cross over that much either. You don't find out crazy new reveals about old episodes when you play new stuff. It doesn't really do anything with the timeline jumping. It's just Rydia finds it out and then goes here. Yang finds something out and goes here. Edward finds out something and goes here. It's the same thing over and over. And that is probably the biggest complaint with this game, is that there's nothing new. All of the assets are reused, and I mean all of the assets are reused, except for the new characters and updated models because they're older. The after years takes place much more than 1 year after the interlude. The story is completely linear. There's no flying. When you have to use an airship, it just controls it for you and gets you to the next area. It's very, very basic stuff. And of course, you spend the time getting the money and getting items and having a good inventory, and then you start the next episode and you have $0 and 0 items and you have to start all over again. It's the one word I would use to describe this game is exhausting. And we're gonna get even more into that, but why don't we just get right into it. First episode is Theodore's Tale. He's the son of Cecil and Rosa. Yeah, it's been that long. He's like a little soldier now. He's a mini Cecil. He's got blue hair. He's working with the Red Wings. And this is when you find out that one of the nameless soldier Red Wings from the original game is Biggs, and one of them's Wedge. So even though Biggs and Wedge first appeared in Final Fantasy VI, they have now retroactively been put into 4. They were there the whole time. There's even a flashback that shows the opening cutscene of 4 where you're Cecil in the dark armor, and it shows Biggs and Wedge saying stuff. So they were there the whole time. You didn't even know, did ya? What this really means for me is that we have a chance now. If Biggs and Wedge can retroactively be placed into 4, then that means Sid can be retroactively placed into FF1. That's the only mainline game he's not in, but we can change that. We have the power to change that. I don't know how. Maybe in Stranger Paradise. Maybe that's it. Maybe the Sid puzzle will be complete. We have to move faster than this, oh my gosh. So Theodore is being trained by Biggs and Wedge. They're his higher-ups. He loves them, he looks up to them. He finds out about the moon and everything, and then he ends up running into this hooded man who has business with Cain. Now, Theodore, I don't think he's met Cain. Cain is still gone. It's been so many years, and he's still just in the mountains, you know? They go off, and that's kind of the end of Theodore's story. Reset all items and all money and all progress, and now, Rydia's tale. Rydia introduces us to Luca, a new character who is being taken under the wing of Sid. And I just realized Sid does not have his own episode. That's messed up. He's got nothing in this game. What the heck? Wow. This is one of the most beloved Sids in the series. How could you do him so dirty? He's got like a white beard now. He looks cool. But yeah, Rydia and Luca, they go to the sealed cave again. So, you know, this is another reoccurring theme. I already did the sealed cave in the Interlude episode. You do it again in Rydia. Nothing's changed. You go to the same dungeon again. They find out the mysterious girl's stealing all the crystals. They go off. They meet a man in black. A mysterious man in black. Who is the man? I don't know. The end. Next episode, Yang's story. Yang is one of the shorter ones. This was about an hour and a half. And it's a little bit disconnected because it's mostly about him and his daughter bonding. His daughter is Ursula. Remember, Cecil named her. She wants to go big and strong like him, but he doesn't really want that for her, so she goes running off. And your party, this is another reoccurring thing. Remember how Final Fantasy IV makes your party whatever you get, and you have to deal with that, and it's kind of like you re-strategize depending on your party. Well, because each episode is focused on one of the party members, they need to now fill in all the blanks. You need to have some kind of party. So for example, in Yang's story, you just get 3 backup monks. Nameless bald monks with all the same sprite, who basically do the same thing as Yang. They just have to fill stuff in. This is filler the game. Ursula runs into the Lost Woods. It's a little bit of a maze, but you find her, and then at the end of the day, the two of you reconcile, and she's like, I really want to train under you. Can I become a monk? I want to become a monk. It's my dream. And she's like, all right, from this point on, you are not my daughter. You are my pupil, and we will train you the hardest that I've trained everybody, and you will be the greatest monk. And she's like, okay. And that's the end of that. We move on to Palam's story. He's a little bit longer. He was closer to 3 hours because he's a black mage, because he can't fight. It's very easy. Like Yang, punch people, move on. Palam, you gotta figure out how to cast some magic. You gotta conserve it if you can. It's like a kind of annoying. You run into the black magic debuff moon, and this new character, Leonora, is a friend of Palam, and she's got to pass her test of the Epopts. So you got to become an Epopt. I don't really know what that is. It's not important. They got to climb that big tower in the middle of the map. They get to the top. She passes the test. Woohoo. Oh no, the mysterious girl is stealing crystals. Let's go back to town. They go back to town. They go to the crystal. The mysterious girl is going to take it. And Palam is like, I have an idea. He takes the crystal. He covers it up. And he stones himself. Very reminiscent of the original game when he thought of that. In that game, remember that? The difference is the mysterious girl takes the crystal anyway and just moves on. And now we just have a stoned Palam. The end. Edge's story. Remember Edge, the cool ninja guy? Well, he's got a whole band of ninjas now because he's also the king of Iblan. This episode is split into like 5 very mini episodes. Each of the ninjas are spread out across the world in disguise and spying on all of the nations, just to figure out what was going on. This is the episode where we get a lot of exposition. But at the end of the day, it boils down to the same thing. They find out about the mysterious girl, they chase her. They climb the Tower of Babel, which we did in the Interlude. Already repeating areas. They fight the mysterious girl, they can't do it, they have to run away. They use their ninja skills to break free and get out of there. The end. Porum's story. She's the white mage twin of Palom. She has pink hair now. They both look way different. They've found their own identities by this point. There's a lot of childhood memories flashbacked throughout her episodes, so her actual story is a little bit short. You go to Mount Ordeals and you find Cain. You finally find Cain. We need his help. There's a mysterious girl getting the crystals. Cain, come back to town and help protect the crystal. Okay, you go there, and Cain says, okay, I have the crystal. Where's the mysterious girl? She's like, give me the crystal. I need it. I'm super powerful and I'll take it. I'll give you the crystal if you lead me to Cecil. I have to murder him. This again, Cain? You're doing this again? So they make a deal. The mysterious girl's like, I know where Cecil is. Come this way, you kill him, and you give me the crystal. Let's go. This exchange is so bizarre because she just stole the crystal from everybody else. Why didn't she just steal it then? Also, Cecil is in his castle. He's not hiding. Couldn't Cain have just gone there? I don't know. But that's the end of that. Edward's story. Now this one is funny because how do you make a whole game off of the bard? A bard can't do anything. He's purely support. He can attack a little bit, but man, he can't hold himself up. So what do? They give you some guards. Nameless guards. Brown suits. They got a sword. They got no special abilities. They're just guards. And you get his secretary, a new character. Her name is Harley. She's got glasses, a ponytail, and she uses a whip as a weapon. She is very similar to Quistis from Final Fantasy VIII. His story, Edward's story, is one of the dumbest. He goes down the waterway, which I think you already did at this point. He's heard Cecil's been acting weird. He's been making weird decision. Doesn't sound like him. So he's going to see Cecil. He goes through the waterway. He doesn't want anyone to follow him, but the guards are like, you can't fight. And so is his secretary. You can't fight, bring me. I'm a secretary. I can fight better than you, apparently. They go through the waterway. And then his secretary gets sick. So they have to stop in the desert. And Edward has to go back on his own through the waterway again. This was really annoying because you have to find some weird crystal that'll heal her from the antlions. It's a whole side thing. So pointless. But so you go back through the waterway, you get the thing, and then you go back through the waterway again. I've read a couple like Steam reviews and everybody mentions the waterway because you just do it too many times. You do every area in Final Fantasy IV is covered like twice over in this game, I think. There's not enough stuff for the amount of time this game asks of you that they just keep reusing. It's exhausting. They finally meet up with Cecil. He gives him a nice pot of flowers and then moves on. But secretly, those flowers were whisper weeds. Remember whisper weeds? You can whisper into them and you can hear other people. So he's spying on Cecil and he finds out, yeah, this guy's up to no good. What's wrong with him? The end. You beat all those stories, you unlock Cain's Tale. It takes place immediately after Porum, so he's going off to kill Cecil. You play as him, murdering things, and then occasionally it cuts to Theodore and the Hooded Man. Remember the Hooded Man? Why does it cut to Theodore? This is supposed to be Cain's Tale. That's weird. So it's basically Theodore going to Baron and Cain going to Baron at the same time. It keeps cutting back and forth. They're basically on a race. Then you both get there at the same time. And then Cain sees the Hooded Man and the Hooded Man sees Cain and he goes like, that's an imposter because I'm the real Cain. So the Cain that went to kill Cecil is actually an imposter, much like the imposter Rydia that we saw in the interlude. So they fight, the real Cain comes out on top, and he gains like the paladin armor, kind of like the same thing that Cecil did in the first game. And now we know the mysterious girl can disguise herself as multiple people, and there are multiple mysterious girls. So this is getting weird in sci-fi. So with that done, the real Cain and Theodore go through the doors and meet Cecil. The end. 2 more episodes left, so the next episode is called The Lunarian's Tale. This is focused on the Man in Black, who we discovered in one of the other episodes as the Man in Black. Turns out the Man in Black is Golbez, the evil brother who went to the moon and stayed there at the end of the last game. He's hanging out with Fusoya. They're just looking around, making sure everything's cool, and everything is not cool because there's the mysterious girl. You fight the girl, she's too powerful. The both of you go and try to seek help from Bahamut, because he's somewhere on the moon, I guess. So you go through this long cave, and this is the most pathetic thing. You get to the end of the cave where Bahamut is supposed to be, and like 2 characters are like, oh, he's not here. I guess we should go back. And then you go back. That's at least like a half hour, 45 minutes of story and dungeon crawling. And that is all that occurs. He's supposed to be here, let's go. Oh, he's not there. Okay. I mean, just so... It's unabashed filler that really grinds my gears. They're not even hiding it. All that happens after that is you fight the mysterious girl again. You lose, the crystals start breaking. Whoa, what's happening? This is bad. The moon starts hurtling towards Earth. Oh no. You fight Zeromus, or a version of Zeromus. It's called Zeromus's Malice. It's basically like the same as the final boss from 4. Oh, this is terrible. You kill him. I don't know what he was doing. Anyway, the moon is crashing. We gotta go. We gotta go down. And that's when they go down. But Fusoya sacrifices himself. Maybe he's not confirmed dead, but he's not like in the rest of the game. So after 9 fillery-filled stories of constantly restarting anew, it's time for the final episode, the Crystal's Tale. If you notice the little thing at the beginning of the review where it shows how many hours this game lasted, if you've done some math, you've seen that this doesn't add up. Every episode is about 2 hours, 15 minutes, 2.5 hours. How is the game 36 hours long? The Crystals episode is a 15-hour boss rush dungeon. 15 hours for one dungeon. And I could not even count how many bosses there were. Around 20? All taking 20 minutes, 30 minutes to fight? Like legit hard bosses? This is where the word exhausting becomes an understatement. At the beginning of the Crystals episode, it asks you to load all your save data. Because remember, these were all released separately, but in the complete collection and in the Steam version, it's all packaged as one game. This is actually pretty satisfying. You load every single episode that you completed, and then you get all of the money and all of the items, all your character levels, all synced up, and you're just like a millionaire now. The moon is crashing down. Some of the characters are in Baron Castle, but before we confront them, we have to find all of the others. So you start as Golbez. This is all very similar to Final Fantasy VI, the third act of that game, where you have to travel around the world and find your friends. You even have to collect a frying pan and bring it to Yang, bonk him on the head to wake him up, just like the first game. And yeah, it's free flying. You have full access to the world of Final Fantasy IV now. You've experienced it all twice over in the previous episodes, but now you're free. It was really hard to track down everybody. I did use a guide at some point. And also you'll experience a lot of unbalance. Golbez is the strongest because you just used him in the last big episode. The team you're stuck with, I don't even remember which characters you start with, but they're all 20 levels below Golbez. Remember, you load them from previous saves, so they're all going to be under-leveled. And that is another thing that keeps happening throughout the rest of this episode. Your starting party has no white mage, nobody can view the map, and they give you no direction to find everybody. It's not the funnest. But anyway, you spend the time, you get the characters together, and you find out, yes, Cecil is under some kind of spell from this mysterious girl acting evil. It's time to go to the second moon. We have to stop the problem at its surface. It's crashing down, we gotta stop it, let's go. You get in the lunar whale, and that's when the rest of the game is just a dungeon. Just one incredibly long cave. It's unbalanced because you only have some characters high level. Really just Golbez is high level, everybody else is lower. But I mean, some characters will be level 40, others will be 30, others will be 20. And you're allowed at this point to build your party however you want, just like the ending of 4. But in 4, you only have a handful of enemies compared to this. All of these new characters, even like all 4 of the new ninjas that worked for Edge, you can choose them too. I don't know why you would. And some points of the game, because of story reasons, because of the boss you fight, you're kind of required, they don't tell you, but you're required to use certain characters. It's so annoying. So you end up training certain people, and then if you ever want to switch, well, you can't, because you've now grinded for like 5 hours with these characters. You want to switch, this character is not going to do anything. There is a close to the very end fight where you have to use Rydia, and I didn't use Rydia up to that point. She was level 25, everybody else was 55, but I needed to use Rydia. So she literally, her ATB bar never filled. She could never make it to an attack before dying, but she had to participate in the fight so she can do some dialogue and end it when it was supposed to end. I played it safe. I used Cecil, Rosa, Theodore, Golbez, and Edge. Edge is the only character I didn't consider like a super main character, but everybody else are like the main characters. At this point, it's a gauntlet. That's all it is. For the episodes previous, you kind of auto-battled through them because they're so easy, but everything changes here. When you're fighting the bosses, you need to be super alert. This is a real deal grind. It did get me a little nostalgic for Final Fantasy IV at this point, but the bosses, they're all the same. Like I said, remember, very important, there's nothing new in this game. Barely anything new. And I just thought I was so close to the end. I have to be close to the end. I just fought 4 bosses in a row. I have to be close to the end. No. Now you fight the 4 fiends. Remember the 4 fiends? I think the original bosses from FF1 that were also in 4, they're also in this because they reuse everything they can. Okay, the 4 fiends dead. Let's go. Gotta fight the 4 arch-fiends. Okay. Just keep fighting bosses. So many hours just fighting, grinding through these ridiculous enemies that also pop up randomly. Random encounters the whole way through. I think at a certain point you actually beat every single boss from 4. They just reuse all of them. And I'm like, well, we did it. Can we be done now? I have to be done now. I used it. They're not going to add another boss unless it's the final one. So this is it. And I shit you not, Gilgamesh shows up. The freak who wielded Excalibur in FF5. He had a few cameos since then. He's a boss in this because they could reuse the sprite, I guess. Not just him. The squid guy from 6, the weird squid guy. He's back, and even the Phantom Train. You fight the Phantom Train in this game, who's just there in the core of the moon for some reason. They didn't think it was enough to reuse every single boss from the first game. They just ended up dipping into other games. I thought, okay, are we gonna get Sephiroth now? Like, when does it end? We didn't get Sephiroth because they can easily reuse sprites from the other Pixel games, but they would have to make a new sprite for Sephiroth, and they're not in the business of making new things for this game, so that was actually the end of the boss rush. Holy crap, what's a worse word for exhausting? I need better vocabulary for this, because jeez. But let's wrap up the story. We finally get to the final boss after 15 hours. So it's this alien guy, he calls himself the Creator. He created the crystals. He did it to try and advance the evolution of his species because his planet became unsustainable, so they went off into a spacecraft, and that's where we're on right now. This is not a moon, it's a spacecraft! But everybody else that was on the ship died. He's the last one. He put these crystals all across the universe to try and basically like terraform these planets for his species. Any planet with the ability to sustain life has been infected with these crystals, and now this is something that you gotta wonder. We already just saw bosses from Final Fantasy V and 6, so is this introducing a canonized multiverse theory to Final Fantasy? Or not even multiverse, because this guy's from one universe, he spread them across it. So are they telling me right now that Final Fantasy V, 6, and 4 at the very least take place in the same universe? Maybe. But what do you know? What happens? You beat him, he falls, and everyone lives happily ever after. It's not that big a deal. One of the mysterious girls, because you find all the clones in the test tubes and stuff, you find a child version, and that child version helps you escape. So Rydia takes her as a daughter and starts raising her, and her name is Kiore. And the very last shot of the game is Theodore sitting in the exact same spot that Cecil stood in the very first shot of Final Fantasy IV as Dark Knight Cecil. It's a cool little bookend. Now everything is good, unless they decide to make a third one with the third moon and the third alien. Who knows? And that's the end, ladies and gentlemen. 3,700 Wii points later, and 39 hours of grinding things we've already seen. We're at the end of the Final Fantasy IV story. This is clearly a predatory experiment by Square Enix. I think they just wanted to find out if they could get away with doing this, releasing a game in 10 pieces like this, $3, $3, $3, and then the last few costing more and more. Well, you're already hooked, you gotta pay more. And I think they wanted to make a game spending the least amount of money possible making new assets. Because you think you could have charged $40 to release this game on DS as like a game instead of this weird episodic thing. But then that factors in retail costs, so I don't know, maybe they profited more with this system. I mean, they never did it again, so maybe they didn't. I don't know. It was stupid. It was a stupid idea. But I don't like to rank games based on the time they were released. I like ranking them based on today. And today, you can get this game for $16 on Steam, the 3D version. Or you can buy the $15 Final Fantasy IV Complete, which comes with both the original and the Interlude, which is the best deal. After years of watching Final Fantasy evolve and going all the way back to the original ATV battle system, it feels a little primitive, but there's a reason why it's the best one to start your Final Fantasy journey with. But, like, man, you could have done some quality of life improvements. You could have done something, right? It's just, it plays the exact same. It feels like this game could have been made in RPG Maker. If you could import the assets, anyone could have made this game. Even the story feels fanfiction-y. At least it looks okay in the version I played. The original Wii version, oh my god, have you even seen that? It looks gross. It's just lazy, man. It's one of the laziest games I've played on this show, and I've played some bad stuff. Every cutscene is just like exposition. You don't get the character interactions you want because they separated them all for each episode. The cutscenes don't even have sound most of the time. Just actually zero effort to modernize it in any way, except for the monetization, I guess. The original Final Fantasy IV is like a 23-hour game. It's one of the shorter ones, because it's simple, and you'll like it for that. It's very consumable. I like to replay that game. I will never replay this. This is about as long or longer than every single mainline Final Fantasy game under 11. The only game you can really fairly compare this to is Final Fantasy X-2, also an asset reusing sequel. But like, there's a lot of new stuff in that game compared to this. I mean, the entire battle system is different in that game. That game's worth playing. Even if you think it disrespects the tone of the original, like, that's a fun game. I would replay that game. What this is just the purest example of exploiting nostalgia. Square Enix thought with this game, what could we get away with? And they just went for it. The idea in the meeting room was, could we monetize a game in tiny little parts for a phone, basically? Can we nostalgia bait people by making them excited for it because it's a sequel to a classic game? All of those questions were asked and answered before they even considered what the game would be. And then when they were finally ready to start, they were like, well, what's the story? It was a second moon, you gotta get the crystals. I want them to revisit these old games. They're classics. I wanted a sequel to 5 and 6, but man, if it would be something like this, don't bother tainting the legacy, you know? This is exploiting fans of 4. Maybe that's what we call this era. The exploitive era. Is that a bad choice? I've been wondering what to call this era since we left the experimental age a couple games back. What's this age? What's this new age? The exploitive age. The age where Square Enix is done experimenting with games and trying new ideas and seeing what sticks. They're all about playing it safe, relying on old IP, nostalgia baiting, and just trying to make as much money as possible. Like it or not, I think that's what the 2010s are really gonna represent for Square Enix. But is this game really all bad? It's exhausting, but if you really like the Final Fantasy IV battle system, if you like Final Fantasy IV, I would only recommend this to the hardest of hardcore FF4 fans. If you're looking like you just played 4 and you're like, well, there's a sequel to 4, should I play that or should I go to 5 next? Go to 5 next. Don't bother. But if you're like super nostalgic for 4, you might actually buy into this. If 4 is like your favorite one, check this out. It might be fun. You do get some decent character interactions here and there in the episode, and then the final episode, each time you reach like a save point in the final dungeon, you'll get like a nice campfire scene with some of them. You might get something. It might be fun. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend this to anybody else. If you're wondering, what about that weird FF4 game? Is it good? Not really. That's it. That's all I gotta say. I explained like pretty much everything that this game has to offer to you. It's just more of old stuff. It's basically replaying 4, but from a slightly different angle. A less good angle, but still it's something new, right? Technically. And that's it. We're gonna move on to more exploitive games in the exploitive era. And we're gonna have some fun, damn it. And I don't know what game is next. I actually don't know. So I don't have a little end teaser. Look, I'm running out of ways to end these videos anyway, so just, that's it. Get out of here. Go!